Good afternoon, friends and folks. Welcome to the Smite Pro League. I'm Tom, that's Tolly, and this is North America. We've got two matches up for you today, which are going to be pretty interesting. How you doing today, Tolly?
Pretty good. It's Friday, the conclusion of week number 2 in the Smite Pro League. We got a good matchup here of eUnited versus Splyce, and then SSG versus Trifecta to follow.
Now, of course, if you're newer to the league, we're in week number 2 of our summer split. So let's take a zoom out and look at where everything lies throughout the entirety of the year. As I said, we're in the midst of the summer split, and that'll lead us to the summertime LAN. Winning in the spring was rival. We'll see who winds up on top in this season. After that, though, we're going to take a brief reprieve, Tolly, and hang out with Smite All-Stars. That should be fun, and that'll lead us to the fall split.
Definitely going to be interesting to see that Smite World Championship moving a little bit backwards than the traditional first week of January, heading to November 16th through 18th.
And that's for only positive reasons because we're joining a much bigger party. If you want to come through, you absolutely can. hi-rezexpo.com is where you're going to buy your tickets. And that's 16th through the 18th, as I said. Sure, you see all the hi-rez fun up there. Console World Championship, Paladins Console Wars as well. But don't forget, this is a dream hack, baby. You're downtown Atlanta, ton of fun stuff to do, including a slew of other different games at the event. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Not as cold as January, so just pack a little light sweater. You'll be all right.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely going to be a blast once we reach that the fall time and stuff. But right now, it's summertime fun. Well, it's raining here in Atlanta, but still, that's good because we play inside. This is our weekly schedule, and you can tell that we're here on the Friday, so we're going to look at North America 1 and 2. Earlier today, we saw Southeast Asia go head-to-head. And the big thing that I want to bring your attention to is on Mondays at 10 a.m. This is our show, eSports Weekly. We've been having an absolute blast. You get to see the commentators' predictions for the upcoming week of the games. We even take a look back to see how they did. Hindu's always wrong. And then we have some fun, too. Our production staff put together some fun videos, and we've even got a moment.
Yeah, I have a moment every now and then towards the end. A lot of silly shenanigans. We like to have fun outside of our serious predictions and whatnot.
Yeah, and some fun and some seriousness when it comes down to the Pro League. Let's take a look at where the teams have been throughout the course of the season. Right now, in Europe, Team Dignitas is sitting up on top. In North America, Space Station is up on top, and we'll actually see them play a little bit later against Trifecta, a squad that has recently made some changes to their roster.
And it's not just Space Station and Trifecta. A little bit up there, right between them, is the Splyce eUnited matchup that we'll be seeing, where Splyce, so far undefeated, finding the victories over Luminosity and Trifecta, but thus far, eUnited losing to Space Station, but then beating LG and CLG to follow.
Yeah, Splyce has been out of control. These guys did not change rosters like Trifecta did, but instead they doubled down on their current roster. They're all grouped up together at the coach's house, and they're really trying to boot camp and improve as a unit. And frankly, I think we've seen that improvement, Tolly.
I definitely agree with you. I think Splyce has a lot of flexibility in their picks and bans, the way that they kind of lean on CycloneSpin and the Hunter role out of Splyce is where they rely on their strengths. And in this matchup in particular, it's difficult because eUnited, they come prepared with a lot of different strategies through the leadership of PBM.
Yeah, Kabam at the helm of Splyce, and across the way, PBM seems to be the leadership for him and his team. eUnited have looked great. We got a chance to catch up with PolarBearMike. Here's what he had to say about the upcoming match.
All right, joined once again by eUnited support and the #1 troll on the team, PolarBearMike. Mike, you're about to go up against Splyce. Splyce is a team that didn't have a great record during the spring split, but has looked a little bit better towards the beginning of the summer. They're living in that team house now. What do you think that's done for them as a team when you just watch how they're playing?
I actually think that's huge. I don't think that people really understand from the outside, unless you're a competitive player, kind of how much of a huge impact that makes for, especially that team. They had, I think, 3 West Coast players, Cyno, Cyclone, and Divios were all West Coast, so to have those players be in a team house by itself can improve like synergy and chemistry and just make everybody kind of feel more comfortable with each other. And then when you're going from 3 people with 100 ping to 5 people with like 30, 40, 50 ping, it is such a huge improvement. So I think everybody in the NA scene, competitive-wise, kind of expected them to perform a little bit better this split.
And they have thus far. I mean, they got their week 1 victories and looked pretty good doing it. And this is a team that I think is hard to predict, right? I mean, Aror's always been one to try and throw wacky compositions out there. They played a lot of warrior ADCs in the last split. Now, that didn't work out for them necessarily, but how difficult is it preparing for a team that is willing to pull out just about anything in any role?
I don't really think it's that hard to prepare for because they're more different than they are like hard to predict, I think, because like I think those teams kind of tend to stick to like one strategy that they think do well. The difficult part is less preparing for it, and it's more that you just haven't played against it. So like you can still know what they probably favor, what they want to pick, or what's in their god pool. But if you don't practice against them, if you don't scrim against them, you might not know how they use it. And I think that's the bigger challenge for us.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you are at least somewhat prepared for Erlong Shen jungle. That's like that's what Cyno mains now, right?
He literally plays it every ranked game, like actually every ranked game. So yeah, I think so.
Fair enough, Mike. Good luck in your match against Splyce, and we'll see you later.
Thanks.
Always good talking to PolarBearMike over there. I really like the way he looks at the game, hearing him talk about his opponents. And I mean, totally, this is something that I think we saw early on. I forget, did your time with Zetman cross over with PolarBearMike's time?
Yes, it did a little bit, and it was always interesting to see how he was able to just come out of nowhere. It was very interesting also to listen to him because I never saw his face actually before hearing him speak. So at first, I literally thought it was ShadowQ. Because I swear they sound the same. In the same, if you close your eyes, you just close your eyes, you have both of them talk at the same channel, you'll never know.
I see Peckies. I don't know about ShadowQ. But either way, PolarBearMike, since then, I think, has shown signs of being a very strong leader and a guy that could really develop into this. And I said this very early on in the guy's career. I said, look, man, he's definitely too immature now, meaning years ago when he was playing with you guys. But I could definitely see him being a strong leader, both with his background of watching, observing, and being a part of traditional sports, and then coming through here and playing in esports. And totally, I think everything sort of wound up correct. PolarBearMike took the helm of this eUnited team, which was pain Divios for so long, and then PolarBearMike kind of steps in and really like made this team, I think, into what they are right now.
So PBM is definitely just as serious as the general was, but he's definitely more jovial than I would say. So you got to find that right balance, and eUnited definitely coming up strong, going from Season 2 enemy roster where it was Benji and Mr. Payne, where they finished second place in that Season 2, and then it's a winning all in all in Season 4. A great improvement with this new support player.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. This is the defending world champion team. Interesting, though, they did start off a little bit slow in the spring split, but I think here in the summer split, they're ready to go. We talked to PolarBearMike even earlier during the year, and he said, you know, look, the squad was in different places, and as we watched them play throughout the summer split, that's clear that that wasn't just a line. The team looks very different now than earlier on throughout the year, so I'm excited to watch these guys turn up. But Splyce, I mean, this is the team that's turning up right now. They finished 5 or 6 last split, and here they are sitting number 2. I know it's early, Toli, but I still think the fact that they've won both of their matches in 2 games speaks volumes.
That's true. Beating out Luminosity and Trifecta. That replay that we saw also from PandaCat, where Splyce is going to have to worry about this Medusa pick potentially. There's a lot of different variants in the Hunter position for not just PandaCat, but also for CycloneSpin. What is he going to bring out? Because last time in his set against Trifecta, brought out the Neath, and definitely surprised Trifecta, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, you heard PolarBearMike and Ryan talk there, and I think Ryan asked an excellent question in how you prepare for a team that is going to come with so many different options. Here you see CycloneSpin getting what definitely coulda, shoulda, woulda been the Penta. Shouts to Divios. But CycloneSpin here and the rest of his squad have pulled out the eclectic picks. But PolarBearMike responded and he said, look, man, you know, it's less about how you prepare and more about how you just deal once you're on the battlefield. That's because true. You can know what they're playing, and that's the thing. Splyce lets you know what they're playing, but how do you play against it is a different question.
You can prepare all you want, but it also depends on the execution on the battlefield, and this is what it's going to come down to is picks and bans between these two teams because it's difficult to really pinpoint the direction with the shifts of the meta, going through splits, going through metas. The healing meta has been more refined, I think, in the summer, more than it's ever been, even during Season 1, and I'm expecting that to be the contest point. Potentially maybe a Guan Yu early pick for one of these soul laners, or even an Aphrodite pick.
Well, we'll keep an eye on those healers to see if that's the direction these teams are going to go. Splyce takes on eUnited right about now. Splyce, the big guys on the left, will go for the first pick, and of course that means they have the first ban. eUnited will be able to respond, not just here, but later on as well. So the first ban overall is going to be the Chonga. This is a character that some solo laners have been playing. Benji has looked fantastic on it. And I don't think that either of these teams have forgotten about DJ Pernica's jungle Chonga, which I think is still a relevant talk.
I think that it's so good in the solo lane that you don't need to run it in the jungle. There's so many other set of junglers that you can still run, and the fact that wanting to build Warlock staff potentially on this goddess, it's easier to get away with in the solo lane than any other position.
A lot of highly contested solo laners. You mentioned Guan. Hercules has been really powerful. Divios has a very fantastic Hercules. And Kakulin has really sort of stepped up and taken a spot as well. But this time around, we're going to see the Xbalanque almost undoubtedly going to be in the hands of CycloneSpin, the hunter for Splyce. But at the end of the day, you got to keep your options open. There's the Guan.
The Guan's going to be the healing factor, but can Splyce counter that? There's Circuit open. There's this Odin potentially looking for that. And if you get the Odin, now you're going to force out the early Phantoms. eUnited, take away one of the anti-healers with the Circuit.
That's going to be a great look for the jungler. Screammmmm has been a very powerful jungler this year, shedding some of his inconsistencies. Now, I don't think it's necessarily fair to paint him with the same term as some of our more inconsistent players. He's not quite 50-50, but he's more like 70-30. He does have those poor games, but I think coming into the summer split, he's been a little bit more reliable, and so giving him the hard carry is certainly a nice look there. Raijin has been rising in popularity lately, and you heard everybody. Arlong Shen jungle, it's what we're going to see.
Cyno sure likes this pick, and it works out for him and his style. Trying to blink into the backline, creating a lot of chaos between the taunt, between the turtle knockup, even giving a health shield. Allows the buffer that Best and CycloneSpin need to do that late game hyper carry damage.
It allows him to both be peel and offensive knockup nonsense as well. So nice look for Splyce. eUnited respond with Artemis, one of PandaCat's early sort of signature characters. And eUnited going to respond by banning out some control characters. No Kumbhakarna and no Odin, specifically looking at their Guan. And Splyce are wary of the Morrigan. This character is very rarely picked for a number of reasons, but Venenu has not shied away from it.
Wow. So
the Herc ban.
Hercules ban, it makes sense, but if you're going to ban one god from Venenu, the Morrigan, you have to ban his Giannis immediately after. Enemies draft in Season 2 was always Guan Yu, Artemis, and the Giannis, but it's going to be Discordia. If you're looking for some solo side pressure, whether it's solo lane or hunter 1v1, that Discordia passive, you cannot ignore it.
To find a soulmate.
Aphrodite going to be the selection for Splyce. Likely to be the solo lane, putting this last pick in the support role. We'll keep our eyes open.
You don't want
there it is. Ganesh going to be the support, and Aphrodite will be the solo. I like this selection. I think Aphrodite is going to work really well with some of the late game options like Xbalanque and even Arlong Shen. Being able to allow Arlong Shen to get to that backline easily with the turtle and then hit the back off, it's going to be a ton of damage.
As long as they can get the Frenzy online, they have that extra power, the penetration once you upgrade it. I think the defensive measures between the Aphrodite and also the peel from Darkest of Nights could allow Splyce the control they need in these team fights.
Certainly very, very true. The Opwash, and I have been waiting for this selection for a long time, I guess relatively speaking. Healers right now are very, very popular. And Opwash here, which is going to be the solo selection for eUnited. I could talk at length at why this is a great solo selection, totally. But the real meat and potatoes of this pick, for those of you scratching your heads, is Opwash's third ability.
That's true. It's going to apply the damage over time, and if you get healed during it, it'll apply that little bit of a stun that you really need for your teammates to collapse on that one individual target. Aphrodite links to one. You're going to have 2 heals, so if you can get even both of them with that third ability, then you're looking for a great team fight.
And talk about a lane matchup as well. Aphrodite has to heal herself in order to clear the wave. Every single time she does that, Opwash going to be waiting to throw out those corpses. Let's get right to the action. I want to see how the Zombie Man does. Game 1, eUnited, Splyce, coming at you now.
What more could you want? Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Totally. Opwash into Aphrodite as eUnited versus Splyce are ready to go. And Taco, I mean, I know you're excited.
This is something that we haven't seen in quite some time. I think, in fact, the last time we saw it was Death Walker's Opwash in competitive play, and that didn't pan out too well. He had actually a really solid performance, and I believe it was also into a healer composition.
Well, we'll see just how well this Opwash is able to do and how well both these squads are able to do. And who do you think will win? Do you like this pick here for very likely Benji over in solo? Or are you leaning a little bit more towards Splyce here in this match? Go ahead and vote for us in the Mixer chat.
It's just so exciting seeing like
it is. I'm pumped.
It's unconventional, but it also makes perfect sense. And although I will not recommend this to you guys back at home, we're gonna. I already know what's happening. I already know what's going to happen, but I'm not prepared for the Outposh ring solos.
No, we need a taco disclaimer down at the bottom, and just kind of. Can you give me like your taco disclaimer face? Like, maybe don't do this in your games. Like. We are moving though. In the Splyce versus eUnited is going to be Benji on the Outposh and Divios on the Aphrodite as we expected. Cyno though, I know I'm actually going to talk about this matchup, but Cyno loves this Erlong. He's on a very big comfort pick himself. The opportunity to punish this Outposh is certainly there.
This feels like a very bold Outposh pick though, because even though you get the lane matchup, sure, you're also so susceptible to being ganked that
yes.
I can imagine that's exactly the game plan Splyce are probably going to bank off of.
There it is.
And here's the pressure that Benji's been looking for against Divios, already catching him with the stun. It's going to happen almost every single time.
Now he's going to be taking his third ability to get everything started just about every time here, this Outposh. And just like you saw, when Divios wants to come up and clear, he's going to be punishing it almost immediately. You saw him get the stun off that time, and very likely that's going to be how this lane is going to go for Divios. But at a certain point, it doesn't matter if Outposh is here. I feel like Aphrodite is going to be Aphrodite, man. I mean, I don't know.
I think that if there's a god that can certainly shut down an Aphrodite, Outposh is your best bet. It's just that Outposh usually still has to deal with the other 4 members of your team or the enemy team, and that's where the complications start to arise because Outposh is just... If you die, you completely lose out on your ultimate. I think that's going to be the big key here for eUnited. Benji's positioning has to be strong enough to where he can still deal relevant damage and get the procs off that'll get the stuns, but he also has to make sure he's not out of position.
Scream, though, causing problems for Cyno already. Aegis forced to come out. Best does push Scream away, so Cyno is going to survive that early engagement, but it looks like it's going to cost him the Aegis. That Relic going to be on cooldown now.
I like the Guan Yu sustain possibilities, and speaking of which, Divios in a lot of trouble already against this Outposh. Benji's chasing him all the way home.
Actually. Let's see. It's very, very close. Pox the health potion right at the end of it, so Divios is just barely going to be able to make it out, but Benji is not done. He is underneath the tower trying to land the third ability again.
I think this is going to work against Benji. He can't afford to stay underneath it for too long. Will be using that meditation that he picked up, but also just to ensure that he can continue to match the sustain from Divios.
And you talked about how Benji could be in trouble on the Outposh, but a lot of the gods that are really good at getting back to you, like Serket, like the Guan Yu, are on eUnited's side. I mean, Cyno's on the Erlong Shen. Is he really going to be able to punish Benji well enough on the Erlong?
Yes. If anything, Erlong's probably one of the better gods to punish him because you have that pin. And Outposh isn't very mobile. He kind of just spams you with corpses to try and get away, slow you down as much as possible, hopefully even find a stun. And the big thing will be if Cyno does like to try and gank the solo lane, he's got to make sure to time it properly on his link to Cyno.
Trying to keep those corpses built up, it looks like, from Benji in the solo lane. Cyno's here for blue, but Scream is on his way to try and strip this away. The buff has been dropped itself. Now it's just the life of Cyno they've got to try and save. He is forced to dash away. Benji's here as well. Divios might be in trouble just from coming to check it out. Has the kiss still available, so he can make it back to tower.
He's got more than enough mana, but he wants to pick up his blue buff. I love this positioning from Benji, just trying to ensure that Divios doesn't actually have a chance to get towards his blue. Now he's got to sit in the wave and protect the wave because he wants to make sure he doesn't miss out on any of the experience.
And Divios has elected to go with this teleport, so even if he does get kind of bullied here, that feels bad. Wow, like maybe a second too late Divios was to blue.
Really well played there by Benji, though. All the way through, just Scream sitting inside of the wave, so Divios couldn't afford to run through that.
Yeah, it was blocking the path right towards the blue buff. Just being a bully, really kind of waiting on him to come back out. Now, he does already have the ultimate. Benji does, since he was able to kind of force Divios away from that blue buff farm and from some of these minions as well. So he has the advantage in lane. Divios now, though, does have the Undying level available to himself as well. And he's going to take this opportunity to back, has a teleport, so he'll be right back here for this wave.
That's probably the only save that Divios did make for himself prior to going to the lane, is that he picked up TP. TP is typically a risky relic selection for a god like Aphrodite, since she is a squishier mage. But considering that most junglers don't tend to stick around the solo lane for too long, especially since eUnited probably want to allow Benji to acquire as much solo farm as possible, get him nice and big, because that way, whenever he rotates into the team fights, he'll have a very serious impact and prevent Divios from having the typical Aphrodite healing success.
Now, Benji is playing the Outwash. You don't get to see it that much of the solo lane. We've said it ad nauseum at this point. But how's he going to go on his build path? I mean, is he going to be doing more of a tankier Outwash type build? Does he want to still have decent damage? Outwash can do decent damage. What's going to be Benji's focus here with this Outwash?
This could potentially be one of the first times that we really get to see Outwash's damage be super relevant in team fights. I think that Outwash has pretty insane burst, especially around the objective control. That's going to be a big thing that Splyce have to keep an eye out for, because when you stack those corpses, that corpse explosion just erupts all over the place. Speaking of which, Divios forced into the Undying Love, trying to stay alive here. Scream still looking to commit for more.
That auto attack was all it takes. Divios drops her first blood to eUnited's favor. Cyno is going to drop as well, and Benji ready to keep things moving on to Aror, who's forced to fall back. Even under the tier 2 tower, still not safe from the pressure from Benji. eUnited with the Benji Scream duo already off to a 2-0 start.
And Benji might not have gotten any credit for those kills, but he's already level 7. He's the highest farm member in the match right now. Speaking of which, CycloneSpin trying to stay alive underneath the tower. PandaCat only needs a couple more autos, but he won't find it.
He couldn't get the boar in range. They really were trying to see if they could keep Cyclone close enough for them to come in with the boar there, but unable to was PandaCat and PolarBearMike, so Cyclone makes it back out. They commit a little bit, take a few tower shots, and the ultimate's down. He'll be safer for a moment in lane because of that.
This is Cyno's worst nightmare, though. He's playing the early lane Shen. The whole purpose of playing Warriors is to try and abuse their early game with the base damage scaling, and that's just not a possibility. He's already about a level and a half behind Scream. Scream just had that nice double kill, one of them being the first blood bounty, too, so we're not even factoring in the gold disparity between these two junglers as is, and with both the side lanes losing so heavily, it's going to be very difficult for Cyno to continuously protect his farm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see more of this, Taco. Clearly, the Outwash has a strong matchup into the Aphrodite here in solo and is causing problems. And Benji making it look good, at least to get started. On this other side, though, he's got those corpses stacked up. He's ready to try and blow them up. I mean, is this Outwash something that can be replicated if we continue to see these mages in solo as the ultimates drop down? Divios in trouble, is going to get hit by that fleeting breath. The ticks are going. Divios Undying Love, so he'll be just fine.
Barely just fine, though. And that's the huge thing to keep in mind is Divios is so far pushed underneath his T1 tower. It's really only a matter of time, because one by one, these auto attacks are going to eventually stack up. The archers are going to eventually build up. Speaking of which, Screen now in a lot of trouble. Was not expecting to get blown up that quickly. Perfect catch on the side of the Dharmic pillars.
And Benji's still this far forward. He just used the ultimate. He's not going to have one of his best tools for dealing with the gank. Divios has to come back underneath the tower. There is the fleeting breath on him if he tries to heal, but Benji really does not have anywhere to go. Even on top of the corpses, Divios finds the kill. And now Venenu has had time to rotate Apple, bursts immediately on the face of Divios and brings him down.
Not even a chance to think about an escape. Divios feeling a little bit comfortable there because they just found the pick onto Scream. You don't really expect Venenu to rotate all the way over from mid lane for a cleanup crew factor. And, well, just nicely timed by Venenu.
And that was so close to being a big deal for Splyce there, as it looks like eUnited are able to come down and strip away that purple buff, because not only did they get the kill in the solo jungle, but Cyno got the kill credit for the kill in the Scream, and Divios was able to get it as well. Unfortunate that Venenu just rotates perfectly and is able to punish. That would have helped close the gap in a big way.
But Divios is a lot more even than what he was before, at least when it comes to experience. These two solo laners are caught up now to each other, or Divios is caught up to Benji now. And more importantly, he does have the teleport, so the teleport's going to make sure that he doesn't miss out on the wave like he might have had he had a meditation similar to Benji.
Still, though, good damage goes onto that tier 1 tower. Benji able to catch Divios out inside the jungle, and this is where Outwash would really like to fight this Aphrodite. Fleeting Breath comes down one more time, pushes Divios back to the tower line, and I imagine we're just going to continue to see Benji be a bully just like this.
It's just non-stop spam. That's the main issue with Outwash. It's so hard to avoid any of this. Divios is probably going to have to use that Undying Love yet again to escape, but Benji's still not over it. He's looking for more. He wants the tower.
But he's got to be careful. Cyno is making the rotation. He's backed up enough, though, has Benji, to where there's not going to be an attempt from Cyno to gank. He's going to come back instead towards his own farm, and that means Benji does not have to relent against Divios here in the solo lane.
The fact that he can heal as well as dealing a massive amount of burst
yeah.
damage, that's the worst part here for Divios. It's just annoying having to clear out those creeps before you can even worry about the wave itself.
Venenu is coming over. That is going to make this in favor of eUnited. Cobra's Kiss into the Deathbane. Scream should be able to get the kill on the Divios, who does end up falling. Now Scream in trouble, though, from the tower shot. Cyno gets credit. Taunt pulls PBM back in, and the knockup, so he takes a couple extra shots and has to leave on the horse.
A nice force out of the Guan Yu ultimate, but with 3 members of Splyce here, and now it's been a 1-for-1 trade out. Divios for Scream, which I don't think anybody from Splyce is going to complain about too much, but Cyno losing the Aegis as everybody tries to dance around this golden apple. Blue buff is available, but it's eUnited who are looking for the invade.
They are going to come down and try and grab this. Benji's still full health, still full mana, and he is happy to continue to box this one out. Blue buff does get stripped away by eUnited. With 3 members strong, they push out the rest of Splyce. And remember, Divios doesn't have the teleport still available, so he's going to have to walk back in. All these minions are going to go to tower. Farm is lost. They might lose the tower. They might even lose Aror, as Benji seems to be unstoppable.
Oh, there's nowhere safe to run, though, for Benji.
Does he need to run?
He's
Are you
trapped
sure?
in between the T1. He could possibly end up falling here. Instead, PBM there to give him the backup that he needed, as TheBest gets a solo frag on Venenu in mid.
They actually very much needed that. Did Splyce can even up the kill count at the very least, but with Benji and all this pressure in solo able to take that tier 1 tower, still this has come out in favor of eUnited. Could be a little bit of trouble for Scream as Cyno and TheBest do collapse on him, but he's able to make it back onto the tier 1. Cyno's still diving for this, even with the minion wave there.
Cyno really wants that T1 tower to try and match some of the map pressure from earlier, as Divios getting poked out to behind his T2. Benji is kind of low as well, but he's bound to heal up a little bit from those corpses.
Right. And that's the part that's making this so oppressive, really, for Divios, is that in a way Benji's matching his sustain in lane, right? And also counters the sustain of Divios. It's gross in its own way what this Opwash has been able to do here so far. So we'll see if they'll be able to keep that going.
And they're only 10 apart in the healing category. Granted, Divios hasn't had the chance to effectively link to one of his teammates, really.
Sure.
I think we're going to see those numbers start to escalate a little bit more apart from each other.
Sure.
In Divios' favor, of course, because it's just Aphrodite. That's the whole game plan behind her, is to try and heal one member specifically. But Benji has just been spamming Divios non-stop.
But this is what we expected, right? We expected the laning phase to benefit the Opwash, obviously, because of how strong the counter matchup is. But, I mean, are they ahead enough? Yes, they got the tier 1 tower. Yes, he's ahead of Divios by like a level or so. But, I mean, it's still an Aphrodite. They still have TheBest on Raijin, who just soloed out Venenu and a Shivalanke.
And see, normally I would say go ahead and continue to smother this Aphrodite, but because of the fact that Best solo kills Venenu in mid, I think that that's going to force Scream to have to be a little bit more attentive towards that mid lane. You can't afford to have a Raijin being fed out of his mind. And speaking of which, eUnited, hoping that nobody's paying any attention at all. And Gold Fury already down to 50% health.
Even Benji's making the rotation. Pings come out, so they know that TheBest is on his way. Tycho Drums might be just out of range. eUnited reset the Gold Fury for now. It's at half health. Cyno and Cyclone want to keep this leash, but now eUnited have it. Venenu's here to zone away. Aror does drop down the Dharmic Pillars, but eUnited secure the objective, and Aror might pay for that one with his life. The apple's on him, and Venenu blows him right up.
There's nowhere for Aror to run. It was a nice placement of the Dharmic Pillars right on the siding of those pillars to deal the most damage against that Gold Fury, but not enough to steal it. I like Best play there initially, though, with the Tycho Drums, because I believe he was using the taunting version alongside the damage to push eUnited away from the objective. They just weren't able to come back into the pit because of the spacing that Benji's presence provides.
Benji's just able to get there that much sooner. In fact, I don't believe Divios ever came over. I think we saw him pushed up beyond the tier 1 tower afterwards, so that does mean the Gold Fury goes away of eUnited, and that's what they're going to have to continue to do. It's one thing to have Benji winning the 1v1 up against Divios, but now Benji can rotate over and start letting that lead impact objectives like the Gold Fury. That's how they start to build up a big enough lead to where Aphrodite full healing people won't matter, especially with Benji still mitigating that some with his third ability.
Splyce know that the early game laning phases are never going to be in their favor because of the way that the side lanes broke down initially. And Speaking of which, Scream still looking to do some more ganks. Even Divios isn't even that far pushed up, but it might be too out of range for what he wanted because now he's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, this is a problem. Undying Love is used. Divios is able to create some space and has Cyno rotating over Corpse Explosion, just not quite enough. Divios is still standing for now. Remember, he opted into magical defense early on, and he's very much going to be needing that Genji Scar.
There's nothing fun about this, though. Beautiful chain link over the wall, going to make sure that Cyno gets that heal applied, and everybody's forced to stop and stare because of the Darkest Night from Cyclone.
eUnited falling back after their gank attempt on the Divios did not prove successful. Benji, though, does not know the meaning of the phrase. He continues to try and bully away Divios from his buff. Meanwhile, the rest of eUnited are looking for Pyromancer. Yet another objective they're going to be able to grab for themselves, but this one won't even be contested. There's not really a way for anyone else to make it into that pit.
I think the big thing here is Cyno just wasn't able to go over to that solo lane often enough in the early game to make enough of an impact to where Benji doesn't cyberbully Divios into the towers every single time.
Cyno with the blink, does not land the pin, actually goes for the knockup on Venenu underneath the tier 1 tower. Now the taunt. Apple comes out though to avoid it with the CC immunity. Cyno unable to find the kill.
That's a lot of damage applied to Best for what might have been a pretty avoidable situation. Hard to find that pin though when Discordia goes into that stealth mode from her dash. That it's not always guaranteed that she's going to be in the center of it. She could be hovering around the edges, and so can't fault Cyno too heavily for that one. It's the tower dive afterwards that was flirting with the danger, I think.
Yeah, while Venenu still had the ultimate available and the purification beads, really, it would have been difficult to make that happen. Looks like Aegis did have to be used though, so at least that is on cooldown from Venenu for a little while longer. Another 140 seconds, but Cyno gonna have to find some success with these picks. He's done a good job being defensive on the solo lane, trying to help out with Divios, but other than that, he really hasn't caused problems for anyone, unlike Scream, who's trying to track down CycloneSpin. Aegis comes out, not enough. Cyclone falls. Aror does lock down Scream and force out his beads, but he's running right back towards the rest of his team. Best comes on the backside, but there's 4 members, and he has to retreat.
It looked like Cyno backed off from that entirely and just chose to farm his back Harpies while the aggression was happening. I think they might have been able to get a pick onto Scream there, although he's probably more concerned about the incoming rotation that the wards probably signaled them for.
Benji once again trying to strip away the blue buff from Divios, the 4-man grouping in duo lane next to them a tower. Looks like they're not done pushing it. Only Aror on the Ganesh is rotating to this, and they shouldn't have too much trouble unless the teleport ends up coming out. Divios is here now to help with the defense.
Divios is just here to stalemate the lane and clear the creep waves. He doesn't need to do anything more than just buy time for his team. Speaking of which, he's going to be forced out of the Undying Love pretty early thanks to the madness from Strife.
PolarBearMike goes up onto the horse. The Best is already in trouble. He falls. Keep in mind, Cyno was able to get the tier 1 tower in mid. That's why he's late on his rotation to this fight as the tier 2 crumbles down. eUnited do take down the mid laner, do take the tier 2 tower, and they're ready to go find something else on the map. Mid Harpy's looking pretty good.
Cyno just trying to take whatever farm he can at this moment because every single part of the map is just nowhere near Splyce's territory. I mean, even their own jungle doesn't feel remotely safe from the clutches of eUnited, and I think that if Splyce want to try and come back from this one, they're going to have to just continue playing incredibly passive. I don't like saying that a team needs to forfeit every objective, but I feel as though this is one of those exclusion circumstances where Splyce probably have to just forfeit every single objective.
Well, they're almost certainly going to forfeit this Gold Fury as Splyce are on top of it right away, or rather this one could go their favor. eUnited are on their way though. PolarBearMike is here on the Guan Yu. He has plenty of steal potential with the mounted or the cavalry charge. He does get silenced out though, so he's not able to jump in. Splyce able to defend this objective for themselves. PolarBearMike can't really steal that away into the Ganesh.
I'm more curious to see how Splyce choose to play out the Phoenix defenses if it comes down to that, because I think that healer compositions are normally very strong in terms of holding out on the Phoenixes, but Benji's ultimate has so much spacing control that it's going to be difficult, I think, for Splyce to want to try and sustain underneath it.
His poke is also really, really strong, especially in an area like that. Fire Giant's being burned. Splyce not going to have a chance to make it even nearby the Fire Giant. eUnited, 18.5 minutes in, they shred the big boy objective on the map very, very quickly.
I don't think Splyce wanted to contest that Fire Giant either way. Like, even if they were
didn't even
a
have
little
a
bit
chance.
closer, they probably knew that they were just going to end up wiping there, and that would lead to even more issues than what they've already encountered in this match. But So far, a lot of the problems in Game 1 have just been a direct result of, I think, eUnited simply outdrafting.
Yes, this Opwatch last pick has been very strong for them. Scream has been giving extra focus to Divios on this side of the map as well, and that's helped them develop a bit of a lead for themselves. Benji has 2 levels up over his direct opposition. Meanwhile, even these other lanes, Scream is able to sometimes come over, and Cyno's kind of been pulled over the solo. We saw Scream come towards CycloneSpin and get the kills. Even though they've been spending a lot of time in solo, they're still helping out other areas of the map too.
I think Cyno just had a lot of issues trying to match the rotational speed of Scream, because Scream had the benefit of not only his own jungle, but stealing part of Cyno's, and that just gave him a small little experience lead that kept amounting to more and more until eventually Cyno just couldn't even rely on, I think, the whole right side of the map pretty much. Like, the entire solo lane factor was purely in favor of Scream and Benji. They had full control.
eUnited fall back towards Pyromancer. They've added that one for themselves. Ulti comes out from Cyclone. Blink taunt onto Benji. They want to try and remove the Opwash early. It takes a lot of commitment, but he's down. CycloneSpin gets kill credit. Best has to Thunder Crash away. And eUnited are up on the horse. They want to come punish. Big time stun comes out. Into the Taiko drums goes the Best, and Scream is in for a wild ride. He takes down the Raijin early on in the fight, and Aror has to retreat.
I think Aror could possibly end up falling here also, and that's going to be a 2-for-1 off of the last spread. Beautifully timed blink over the backside, while all the focus and attention was towards eUnited's front.
That means now the tier 2 tower is going to fall as well. An all-in commit there from Splyce onto this Opwash, Taco. Well, they got the Opwash, they got the Aegis, but they did not win the fight after.
That was almost in favor of Splyce, though. They were
it was close.
So close to managing, I think, a successful base defense. If everybody gets out, then I think eUnited are in a little bit of trouble, and they're probably going to be forced into waiting for Benji to respawn. But as it stands, 2 T2 towers, considering how dominant eUnited have felt over Splyce in this match, is probably better than what might have actually occurred had Benji not died there.
That's fair. Despite not winning the fight outright, they have kind of pushed eUnited back. They only have another minute and 15 seconds or so on that Fire Giant before that'll be falling off. They might have time to all group and come make one Phoenix push. But at this point, it's more likely they're going to end up waiting on that next Fire Giant. So Splyce have a chance to farm up now, Taco, and try and get back to even, or at least more even ground than where they are now. They're down 10,000 gold.
As if things weren't awful enough, though. You've got Benji with the Magai's Cloak and Gem of Isolation, Divine Ruin. All he's trying to do is stay alive, but that seems to be the game plan for Splyce. They don't want to let this Outwash stay on the map.
Yeah, he got taunted into the knockup. Dharmic Pillars is there as well to bring additional damage. Benji, they recognize he's alone on the map, and they come take him down early. Scream, though, is here if he wants to try and jump in, and Divios is going to be his target. Cobra's Kiss doesn't land only onto Aror, and he has to last breath the Ganesh. That is better than the Aphrodite if you're Splyce.
There's no way Aror is going to survive here, and I think Scream knows he's just going to have to let Divios go, although he's still pushing even deeper, just checking their jungle farm to make sure that there isn't anything Divios might be trying to snag away last minute.
Now, I think they were all trying to back the minute that they killed Benji, but he had that fleeting breath on them, and you saw it tick a little bit even after he died, and that kind of delayed some of the timers and gave room for Scream to make the rotation, at least punish Aror.
I thought Scream was going to go on to Cyclone because he was not quite fully backed yet, and I think Scream did have his blink available, and he just chose not to use it. Probably went for a more reliable pick than Cyclone, because otherwise you go for the Hunter, everyone from Splyce is going to stick around and then look to CC the Circat.
Is able to only get one kill in trade as Benji drops. The 0-3 and 5 for the Opwash, I think, does not quite give credit to the impact that it's had. Much more relevant is all that player damage. 19,000, Taco. That's pretty absurd. And a lot of that's been going on to Divios in that solo lane, but you saw what happened on the Fire Giant with that big Opwash ultimate and all his damage. He's been doing a lot for this team that might not show up in that scoreline.
Scream and Benji's player damage combined is more than everybody from Splyce's combined. That is how much of a threat and an issue eUnited's jungle solo have been for Splyce in this match, and we already know that Circat's going to have insane mobility to just shift from one part of the map to the next, but the fact that Benji just confirmed the lockout of Cyno from his own jungle is what really stressed Splyce in this game, because they were spread so thin all the time, constantly having to 3-man split waves, and that becomes a problem in its own because you just can't afford to have experience split that heavily.
approaching 24 minutes into this one, Taco, and Splyce are here. They're going to try and defend the fire down, or at least they're positioning like that's the idea. All of eUnited are here as well to try and grab this for themselves. This could certainly be a backbreaker for Splyce if eUnited can grab this, and they're shredding it. Splyce have to retreat. They positioned around it, but they didn't really want to go in and fight. eUnited take the objective for themselves.
I like that Splyce chose to back off there too, because for a second I was concerned they thought that they could maybe defend. The problem is, even if you do send somebody in and they try to jump on top of that fire giant for the last minute steal, you've got Benji's Corp Explosion. That hard secure is almost unavoidable death.
Well, it is going to be the grouping in the solo side Phoenix now. Everyone from Splyce here to defend. The big fight we thought was going to happen at the Fire Giant is much more likely to happen here at the Phoenix. Divios already is the target from Benji, who sent some corpses his way, and Divios has been chunked down to about half HP. Is going to be able to heal that up. Benji stepping forward, putting the corpses onto Aror on the right-hand side. They're trying to find a way in, and that's going to be the target. Cyno goes in early onto PandaCat. Gets taunted in by the Tycho drums, but PolarBearMike has the stun on a Cyno to force him back. Strife lands, and Divios has got to be careful. He's inside the corpses. Now they're going to empty the crypts, and the target on the backside is going to be Aror. Scream goes for him, and Benji takes him down.
Aror doing his best to try and spread away from his team, but it's Best who actually ends up going in against PolarBearMike, charging straight into the likes of eUnited. He's still alive for the moment, but Venenu going to make sure to take him out.
Phoenix on the right-hand side is down. Only Divios, Cyno, and CycloneSpin still standing to try and defend. Big Pen comes out, but at this point, there's just no follow-up. Splyce, they're beaten, they're battered, they're bruised. They've got to try and find a way to defend up against eUnited, 5 men strong. Benji on the opwash has been a tremendous issue for them this game, and he continues the onslaught onto Divios, who's been hit by the fleeting breath. Titan now down to about half HP, but they're forced to reset. CycloneSpin finds PandaCat, and eUnited have to retreat.
I'm surprised that they actually choose to back off there too. I guess it's maybe the possible problem of Aror respawning, but he didn't have his Dharmic Pillars on his respawn, so interesting that eUnited still felt threatened enough by the Titan damage and Cyclone to want to back off.
Splyce managed to stay standing here, Taco. They keep themselves in this game. But Benji continuing to pose problems for them. Divios and that Aphrodite heal was supposed to be this sort of equalizing factor for them, where even though they're behind, they can win these poke engagements. But Benji is better at poking and better at stopping their healing, and they have Guan Yu. They have their own sustain on their side. Splyce just barely keep the Titan alive.
Aphrodite has been such a heavily contested pick in competitive play that it doesn't really strike me as a surprise to see Alpwash starting to resurface.
Yeah.
I think that was the original response back when Mage solos were the thing to do. I'm talking all the way back in like Season 1, Season 2 kind of era of Smite, when you saw a little bit more flexibility in terms of what gods were actually reliable to play in the solo lane. And Aphrodite's been there since the very start. She comes and she goes with the metas, and as healers start to rise up, so do all of their anti-heal.
I think it's very likely we'll continue to see the Opwashes here as eUnited have now grouped up. They do still have the Fire Giant buff for about another 40 seconds or so to their name. Looks like they want to try and group up in the duo side here, Taco.
The big thing here, too, is Benji isn't necessarily there to guarantee confirm a kill. So
Sure.
much as his sole purpose, I believe, is to just throw out any sort of damage or form of spam that can be applied to Divios and prevent him from getting a nice heal off of his teammates.
I think that's purely there to stop Divios from being able to reliably heal. He's saving the 3 specifically for trying to catch him during the doves and forcing him back. Now it's a 3-2 split here from eUnited. They've got Benji and Scream in mid, and they've got the rest of the squad, PandaCat, PolarBearMike, and Venenu on duo side. A mini wave is with them as they push into the Phoenix. It's been brought down to half health. Only CycloneSpin really here to defend. This is the Phoenix that they're going in on. He drops his ultimate. It does force them back, but they've got PolarBearMike for the heals.
But it's only for a moment. Everybody else from Splyce had to head back into the
Auror's in
field.
trouble.
Auror's not going to get out.
Aror has been forced away. Best now has the golden apple of the Discord on top of himself. It does bring him down to about half HP. PandaCat has to use Aegis. Cyno is on him, and there's really no one to peel. Best ends up falling to Venenu. PandaCat still boxing up against Cyno. He's able to win that one. Now come in Scream. He's looking for CycloneSpin, but Venenu is the one that finds it. Double kill for the mid lane mage. Phoenix on the left-hand side going to be the target. Only Ganesh, only the lone elephant. He can't drop beaks fat enough to keep himself alive here up against eUnited.
It's because I said he was going to die. he has to be the lone survivor of this game, as Splyce do end up falling to eUnited here, and the Outwash solo gets victory number 1.
How many times has Outwash been played? Is he 100%? How many times has Outwash been played this split?
Has he
been played
split?
Yet?
None.
Yeah, he's
Not
100%,
at all.
right?
He has never been played in
Best god
Season
in the
5
game.
split.
Yeah.
No, that's not how this works.
He's 100%,
No,
Taco.
That's not how
You
this works.
can't
Benji.
fight math, Taco. I'm sorry.
I can fight logic with logic and better logic.
Better logic. eUnited, though, are the ones able to come out with their win. We've been getting a lot of credit to Benji on this Opwash, and this is actually a great question. Who do you think was the MVP of that game? Vote for us in Mixer Chat. I think there's a great case to be made for Screammmmm on that Circuit play as well. He did an excellent job keeping not just Divios, but Cyno down as well.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. I think that it was probably Screammmmm in my mind for what it's worth, because Benji, sure, you get to suppress the solo lane, but there's got to be more to it than just the solo laning phase matchup. I think that Screammmmm making sure to head over to that solo lane time and time again, fully preventing Divios from getting online by any stretch of the imagination was the main reason why eUnited were able to keep that one going.
It pulled Cyno over to the solo side of the map. He couldn't do his normal jungle rotations, and just a little bit too strong from eUnited there in game 1. It is only game 1, though. We got a full set ahead of us. Let's get it back to the desk to break it down.
Better logic? Isn't that just Mac Miller? I don't know. Tom and Totally going to break this one down. Fantastic stuff. I think that this was just... I'm very excited because I've been sitting here for a long time. I even said I'll watch on eSports Weekly. Everybody be laughing at me. This is how a meta evolves. A lot of times people kind of look at the meta and go, well, they buff this, they buff that, so that's what we're going to embrace. This is how a meta evolves. It was all about late game and high damage, but extended damage, so we responded by going into healers to deal with that extended damage. And then to deal with those healers, we bring out the anti-healer in Opwash. Look at those stats out of Totally.
Look at the Go On You healing as opposed to the Aphrodite. 12.5 to not even 5,000. Divios was on the back foot the entire game, and this was, you could say that this was the Benji show, but this is also the Opwash show and how Benji was able to put it into highlight.
Exactly. This is what this character does. 26,000, 26.4 player damage there. And again, not a surprise. Benji is going to be your MVP. And again, not a surprise. The Opwash had the upper hand against Aphrodite. And again, not a surprise. But he was able to pilot him throughout the course of the game very strong. And I suppose I could repeat myself a 4th time.
That's very true. And like, it's not just the counter matchup of like him being able to use that third ability to apply the stun. It's also the fact that Aphrodite can't really do anything to him early game. And the way this mechanic works with the passive of Opwash, you drop your 1, you drop your 3, you pick up those corpses, you reduce the cooldowns of your first ability, which is 10 seconds long. He had Shoes of Focus, giving himself that 9-second cooldown, so you pick up the 2 corpses, you're already at 5 seconds. Now keep in mind, each corpse you pick up is 5% max health, 3% maximum mana. Based off of Benji's build, he has 500 from Warlocks, 250 from Gem, 300 from the Mad Guy's Cloak, 200 extra from the Bulwark. So at level 20, with all those items combined, he's sitting at about 3150 health. So each corpse he picks up gives him 157 health.
And then also going to amplify his mana gain as well. Fantastic stuff. And we're sitting here focusing on the way that he counters the healer. But Opwash also does a fantastic job. You notice the right side Phoenix Siege? The Opwash ultimate comes out, and you simply can't be there. There's no way to defend that. I mean, you literally can't. Otherwise, you're in the middle of the ultimate, which lasts longer than other ultimates, and you just wind up dying. This is a character that his level 1 is abysmal, and I think that's really kept him out of the competitive scene. But with the recent changes that he had to his Corpse Explosion, able to do a little bit more damage, there's a character that once he hits level 3, he really boots up. He really comes online, and it becomes something that's tough to deal with, even outside of the healer world. I mean, just being a strong mage, you saw the damage homie did.
Yeah, it's not just the damage. The utility with a Gem of Isolation. The ultimate does not only do a lot of damage in its own right, making it annoying to either defend or siege into him, but it's also trying to chase him down with a Gem of Isolation. It buys him more time to use those corpses, to hit the enemy, pick it up for the sustain himself. He was just all over the place.
He's a zoning mage, right? We look at Opwash, and he's the anti-healer, and he's going to bring a lot of long-range burst by way of the Corpse and the Corpse Explosion. But watching this guy kind of do what he does, I mean, the second thing is how well he zones, and the Gem of Isolation makes it tough. You drop down the ultimate on the right side, and then you toss out a Corp on the left side, and nobody can really walk into your Gold Fury pit area. Nobody can walk into your Fire Giant pit area because they're slowed, and then they're going to get stunned, and then they're going to get jumped on. and you just can't escape it.
People always consider Zeus as the zoning mage with the ultimate, but Alpwash does that even better.
Yeah.
Not only that, keep in mind that every corpse he throws out, that can be used to body block. You need to use 2 basic attacks to destroy the corpse, and if you're trying to save yourself, save your allies, just drop those corpses and let it rain.
We're preaching the word of Apwash for good reason. Just toppled the Aphrodite. I think he does have some outside application as well. And unlike a lot of the casters, when strange picks come out here, I'm going to say the opposite. Don't be afraid to play this in your game in the right scenario. Just make sure you understand why you're picking them and how to play them. We did have that POV cam up. Let's get up.